welcome to the regulatory podcast. I know this is one that you all look forward to. Today we're going to be talking about switching. It's something that we've been talking about, I think, for the past 4 years. We're going to split it into two because conscious that some of the switching just applies to residential and some of it applies to business. So we don't want to bore you to death talking about the wrong thing. For those who don't know me, I'm Lee Turner. I work in the industry engagement and regulatory team, and I've got with me...
I'm Megan Corcoran.
Hi, Megan also works in the same team. So, switching. I think on this one we're going to talk about residential. Yeah. It's pretty much prescribed. We know what we have to do, but let's just recap on it. What's the regulatory requirements for resi?
So for residential, as of the 3rd of April 2023, you had to follow one-touch switching. Didn't actually go live till September last year. You have to use TOTSCo, the TOTSCo hub, the one-touch switching company, and you have to follow the OTS process. Yeah,
and whereabouts? So you said it went live in...
It was the 12th of September.
12th September. Yeah. How many people are on it? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know that one. It should be all the residential providers in the land.
I know that
certainly the big ones.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that we've had is that Ofcom have been really concentrating on the large providers, and we're giving the large providers a kick in. Do you think their focus has switched now to the whole industry?
For res, certainly there's an enforcement team, and anybody that is selling to residential customers that isn't using OTS should have already heard from Ofcom, I would have thought.
Yeah. And the other thing, because you said it's mandatory, so basically Ofcom have appointed TOTSCo as the sole provider.
Indeed, the sole provider.
Yeah. But if you can't consume an API, for instance, so you can't consume directly from TOTSCo, what's your options?
Then you use a managed access provider, and as we love an abbreviation in this industry, it's a MAP, and they will build a front end for you. There's quite a few maps in the UK, and they offer different types of services, and they're all listed on the TOTSCo website.
And from a cost perspective, it varies on what they're offering to you.
It depends on the service wrap and what you want. If you just want a GUI or you want something a bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, so what you've got is you're going to have to pay TOTSCo.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to pay a MAP.
Indeed.
And somehow you're going to have to recover that cost or absorb that cost.
Indeed.
That's reality.
And that's the cost of doing business in that market. It's no ifs or buts, it's regulation. Have to do it.
So in terms of, I know where the general confusion comes in is people confuse switching and the one-touch switch system with the provisioning systems. I mean, what does OTS actually do?
I get asked this a lot, and this is really confusing for people, I think. So it's a communication platform. It's a mechanism for the losing provider and the gaining provider to speak to one another, to say, I've got this customer, Mrs. Miggins, 3 Acacia Avenue, is that right? This is the broadband line, this is the reference, this is the phone number if there is one. And it's that part of it. So you're validating the end customer's details so that you should have the correct information. You then, and that's just the front end, you then have to complete all your BAU activities, just like you've had to before, depending on who you use, who your supply chain is. OpenReach, for example, you'd still go on to OpenReach and place your order, and you would need to ensure that it is matching the information you got on your match request when you did the OTS bit at the front.
Yeah. And in terms of like number importing,
you still have to do your BAU activities.
Yeah. But I mean, the restrictions on porting, because what we're seeing is that there's still functionality built into porting that sort of contradicts what you can do, say, for broadband provisioning. So the ability for the losing provider to cancel an order. Now, the functionality is still there. It's still in the Gamma portals. It's still in other people's portals. But what should you be doing as a residential, if you're providing services to the residential community?
You can no longer use cancel other if we're talking broadband switching. If we're talking porting and numbering, you should not use cancel other for a residential port, but the functionality is still there. There's been a lot of work in industry about porting, and there is a thing called OTS porting that will hopefully be coming out next year, which should solve some of the issues, because what we're finding is the OTS bit is happening, you're doing the match, and the gaining and losing retailer are both happy they've got the right information. Then they place a number port and it gets rejected because of postcode, because of course higher up there's different data that's being validated. So OTS porting should resolve that. But you would still have to do the OTS match, and you still have to place your port just like you do today. The OTS doesn't do anything physically. It doesn't physically switch, it doesn't physically place an order. You still have to go in and do the usual things that you do now.
But in terms of Gamma customers, because one of the issues we've seen and argued about all the way through the business design is supporting a complex supply chain. And we were told up front with unpack, wholesale is not involved, supply chain is not involved, this is residential to residential retailer. I think what we've all found out is that despite our arguments were correct. The wholesale supply chain is involved.
Yeah.
What issues do you think we're going to face trying to implement things like OTS porting, where you've got two retail providers, you've got two broadband providers, you may have two different voice providers, and then you've got porting agents on top of that, hosting providers?
I mean, there's a plethora of issues, isn't there, really?
Yeah.
So the first thing is the validation. So when you do OTS porting, the validation changes in that you're reliant on the retailers doing the validation, whereas now today it's done further up the chain and the validation is done on different data. So that's one of the things. But in OTS porting, you've got the billing implications as well, because you can't overlap in billing. So the customer switches from losing provider to gaining provider, and the billing mustn't overlap at all. On that day, it's got to stop with one and start with another. And I think how porting has worked is you get the broadband in, you do the port after, and there is an overlap in charges. You can't do that with residential specifically. So you have to make it work. You also are not supposed to have a breakage in service. So how you have to make it work is that the two align. Well, that takes quite a bit of jiggery-pokery right now, frankly.
Yeah, and we know that some of the resi providers, you can't terminate one part of the service. So if you've provisioned the broadband and then through one touch switch you say, right, the broadband's working, they'll disconnect everything, won't they?
Yeah, certain providers will link the broadband with the phone number and will cease the lot. See, that's what I mean by jiggery-pokery. You have to be careful what order you do things in and what goes live first.
So I think the message we need to get across to some of the partners is you might have to change your BAU processes.
You will have
for
to
now.
change. Yeah.
I mean, until OTS porting comes in, which is untested as yet.
It is.
And I think we've still got concerns around the impact on other services through, in effect, having real-time porting.
Well, same day, certainly. Yeah.
Erroneous transfers, I think, are one.
My favourite topic, yes.
I mean, got to be honest here, Gamma have probably been the most involved business provider, not just in terms of the business switching, but also in the resi side as well. We had a lot of input from day one.
We have, and we've helped a lot with OTS porting, coming up with a wholesaler model, because of course OTS porting was designed by and for the larger vertically integrated providers, not really thinking about the complex supply chain, because obviously they're just thinking about what they need to do. And we've come along and come up with a way that it can work for the complex supply chain.
So, I mean, really, in conclusion, for residential OTS porting, it's pretty much cast in stone, isn't it?
It is at this point. As you say, though, the testing hasn't started yet, and we're hoping to do that early next year. We're going through, just this week, different scenarios of different, because you've got different parties involved with porting. You've got range holders, you've got the losing CP, if it's a sub port. So we need to go through all those scenarios and make sure that there isn't that it flows through and there's not a break in service somewhere. And everybody's got to act quickly, that's the point. Whereas now we have 4 days on average for a residential port, 4 to 7 days. You're talking about doing everything same day.
Yeah, but I mean, the suggestion is that you use the query functionality, isn't it, up front? So
Absolutely.
OTS porting will allow you to query the supply chain to make sure that that can actually happen.
Yeah, it will query everybody. Is this the correct information? And are you set up for OTS porting? Because, of course, everyone won't be. Not everyone will be doing it.
Yeah. And is there any implications about not supporting OTS porting? Because we saw the letter that came out from Ofcom, the famous letter that came out from Ofcom
last year, was it?
Last year, maybe, I can't remember, that basically said you will. As part of having quicker switching, we expect you to support this functionality. But it seems to be aimed at the large providers.
I think there was some wording in the letter that said something along the lines of particularly those with the largest residential bases or something. But it's not in the GCs, that's the point. So it isn't embedded in the GCs, but it's a letter. I think most of the larger providers have taken it as a mandate.
Well, we know the discussions we had where some of them were quite vociferous about it and said, you have to do it. I think the argument back, as with anything, other guidance is, unless it's in the GCs,
it's not
part of regulation.
Yeah. But then there's end user demand, then there's channel partner demand, isn't there? Our customers' demand. And that's the thing that we will answer to.
Last one, because I think, as we said, it's pretty much cut and dried what you have to do for Resi. OTS porting, who owns it? Is it part of TOTSCo?
No, it's an industry process.
Do you think TOTSCo might try and take it on board and make it part of their offering in terms of messaging? Because I know that with some of the discussions we've had, people are looking at how you can expand that messaging solution to cover other things. I know porting was involved. I'm looking more from a commercial charging perspective. Do you think TOTSCo see that as a potential another revenue stream?
It's not something I do speak to them often. It's not something I've spoken to them about. It's possible, but I think the way it's been played at the moment, it's an industry process. Industry developing it, but then of course the OTS processes itself was also written by industry. So whether they become some kind of guardian of it, maybe they could. Maybe there would be the functionality.
Yeah, so it's a wait and see. Right, I think we've covered just about anything else that we can think of on that.
Well, if you're providing to consumers on consumer contracts and you're not signed up for OTS, please do so.
Yeah, it's a good point. So one of the difficulties we have is, how do you know what process to apply? Do you use the mandated OTS process? And Ofcom, because we pushed back on this a few times, said, all right, if you're struggling to identify, then look at the contract. If you sign them on a residential contract, you have to use OTS. So on a business contract, use business. Nothing stopped business using OTS.
No.
It's your choice. But you probably won't want to do it because you won't meet the SLAs and everything else that's in it.
No.
So yeah, check the contracts. If you're selling stuff on a residential contract, you have to use OTS. The other thing is as well, if you've got a few thousand customers and half a dozen of them are residential,
you might want to look at that.
You might want to look at that because you have to consume OTS. Because it's
Which
not
would be
a case,
expensive for a handful of customers.
Because it's not a case of just saying, I'm not going to win any, I'm not going to sign up any more residential customers. You have to be able to lose them.
You do.
Through OTS.
That's a really good point. You do have to be able to lose them. So even if you've got one and you're never going to win any, you still have to be.
Either get rid of them or convert them to a business contract.
Yeah.
It's a bit sort of a glib statement, but if one of the large providers wants to take that customer and it's on a residential contract, you're not signed up.
Oh, they'll report you for sure.
You will get reported.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And on that happy note, I think we just about covered everything for the residential market. Thanks for watching that podcast. I hope it's given you a little bit more insight into the residential market and switching. If you have any questions, If it's to do with commercials, go and talk to TOTSCo. Otherwise, come and have a chat with us. We hope that you found this interesting, and the next podcast coming up on business switching is next.